I'm Paul Edwards. I'm the author of the Mourner's Woods books, and first and foremost, a monster kid. Today I'm reading Famous Monsters of Filmland, issue number 4, from August 1959. I thought some of you might enjoy flipping through this vintage monster magazine with me, just in case you don't own your own copy of Famous Monsters of Filmland, issue number 4, from 1959. Together, let's see what kinds of vintage monster goodness is in here. Famous Monsters of Filmland, issue number 4, from August 1959. This is now the oldest monster fan magazine that I own. When I was a boy, I was fascinated by this cover. Fascinated. But I didn't have a copy of the magazine of my own. I just got this one, and I'm very happy. I will point out, the binding is in terrible shape, and the back cover is completely missing. Spoiler alert. So, it's not in terrific shape, but that's what makes it affordable. In this issue, we're going to read about Zachary, who is a very famous horror host, TV host. The Mummy. The article is printed on Tana leaves. Uh-oh. And Christopher Lee, the handsome horror. All right, let's dive into issue number 4 of Famous Monsters of Filmland. And for obvious reasons, I would rather turn the pages carefully rather than quickly. Oh yeah, see, this has almost completely come off now. Yep. Oh, Dwight Fry. Nice. They said it couldn't be done. They said you couldn't make a magazine as great as Famous Monsters. They said it would only last one issue. The PTA, Peasants of Transylvania Association, would stop it. Well, obviously it went on way beyond 4 issues, but Forrest J. Ackerman was right to crow that it had even lasted this far. Remember, this magazine paved the way for monster fan magazines that followed it. At the time that this came out, I'm sure people thought that it couldn't be done. But of course it was a huge hit. Creature from the Black Lagoon. Nice. Okay. Table of contents. That's a Forrest J. Ackerman pun if there ever was one. You Asked for It was already going back in issue 4. Reader's Digest. Mummy's the word. All right. Well, we should have some good stuff in here. Already, kids were writing into Famous Monsters to try to get their letters and pictures published in the magazine. Except Zachary, who needed no publicity. He had plenty of it. Uh-oh. Okay, well, the good news is this is an awesome picture of the Wolf Man, Lon Chaney Jr. The bad news is the shock of things to come. One of the shocks of things to come is that somebody cut something out of here. And I bet I can guess that it was a picture. Yup. So in 1959, if you wanted a picture of your favorite monsters, you couldn't Google it. You had to wait for a publication like this to print one. And then if you liked it, you would cut it right out of the magazine. Like this would have been a good one to do. You would cut it right out of the magazine and you would tape it to your school notebook or tape it up in your wall in your bedroom, something like that. But of course, you'd be sacrificing a piece of your magazine, and including whatever was written on the other side. So some kid cut out the picture that had been here. Oh, there's a rondo. Oh, check out the robot from Target Earth. Oh. Somebody has scissored something out once again. Oh my gosh. Wow. Exclusive inside dope on over 100 new monster films. Well, I hope what was printed here wasn't too exciting, because it's gone now. Look, whoever cut it out, they only cut out like a piece of a picture. It's not even like they cut out a whole picture. Oh my gosh. Oh, this is from the stream. This is a publicity still. It's not actually a frame from the movie, but it's a publicity still from The Strange World of Planet X, which you might know better as The Cosmic Monsters. There's another Dwight Fry picture. Oh, a profile view of the Werewolf of London. I've never seen this image before. It's pretty good. Oh my gosh. Yep, It, the Terror from Beyond Space. This is from Blood of Dracula. I didn't recognize it right away. That's a movie that doesn't actually have Dracula in it. Blood of Dracula. Blood of Dracula is a film about this young lady who gets sent to reform school where the evil professor it performs an experiment on her and transforms her into a vampire. That was a 1950s drive-in horror movie, if there ever was one. Blood of Dracula, complete with a musical number. Speaking of drive-in 1950s movies, if you know your Ed Wood, then I'm sure you know Vampira and Tor Johnson. Now, this was from a masterpiece of a horror movie, the 1931 Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And this is Frederick March. But a monster kid before us has scissored the face away, probably to put on his bedroom wall or something. So you don't get Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde. Forrest J. Ackerman loved the fact that he was introducing a new generation to the monster films he grew up loving. One of his favorites was Lon Chaney Sr., silent film horror star. And one of Lon Chaney Sr.'s biggest roles was as the Hunchback of Notre Dame. He also played the Phantom of the Opera, among others. And in fact, several of Lon Chaney Sr.'s films, including Phantom of the Opera and Hunchback of Notre Dame, you can see on my YouTube channel. I have a podcast of silent films, silent horror films. I've got both of those up there. Nope. The kid with the scissors strikes again. Oh, because it was cutting out what was here. Sometimes when they would predict upcoming horror movies in this magazine. With the benefit of hindsight, you could see sometimes they got it right, but sometimes they had the title wrong, probably because the title was changed before the movie came out, or the movie never materialized. For example, Frankenstein from Space. There was no movie called Frankenstein from Space. There was Frankenstein Meets the Space Monster in 1965. There was not a Martian Frankenstein either. But there was Frankenstein Created Woman. They got that correct. And there was Horrors of the Black Museum. And here's an example of one that they got the movie right, but not the title. The Creeping Hand, obviously, is referring to the crawling hand. So sometimes they were on the money and sometimes not. That's Warner Oland and Henry Hull in the Werewolf of London. Not the American Werewolf in London that you're probably thinking of. This is from the Werewolf of London from the 1930s. Oh. I have always liked the Invasion of the Saucermen aliens. I'm not usually crazy about Paul Blaisdell's work, but this I am crazy about. I've always liked that. You asked for it is when readers would write in letters requesting pictures of their favorite monsters or their favorite actors. And if you were lucky, Famous Monsters of Filmland would print one of the pictures you requested. Do you recognize this? This is a more advanced question. Do you recognize who this is? Would you believe me if I said this is from the 1931 Universal film Dracula? Well, it is, and here's why. When they filmed the 1931 Dracula, they had two different casts. By day, the English language cast would come in and shoot their scenes, and of course, Bela Lugosi played Dracula in that film. But by night, a separate crew came in, used the same sets, dressed them up differently, and made their Spanish language version of Dracula. So this is the actor who played Dracula in the Spanish version of the 1931 Universal Dracula. Oh, Colin. It took me forever to find out what this image was from. I've seen this image for years, and I couldn't recognize what movie or TV show it came from. Finally, I learned the answer. This was the actor who played Renfield in the stage production of Dracula, not in a movie. This is just an image of him, a publicity image from the stage play Dracula. Yep, that is Forrest J. Ackerman for sure. You know, in the 1932 film The Mummy, Boris Karloff was only wrapped up in the mummy bandages in the opening sequence. After that, he was out of the bandages and he was an evil ancient sorcerer who had been awakened in our day. But he wasn't wrapped up the way we think of the mummy now. And it's a shame because the mummy makeup was superb for Karloff. In the 1940s, when they rebooted the Mummy franchise and they gave us a mummy that was always wrapped up and just lumbering around choking people, that's the mummy we're more familiar with, I think. The makeup was nowhere near as meticulous as this. Yeah, case in point, this is from The Mummy's Curse. This is the third time that Lon Chaney Jr. played the Mummy. Look at that. Look at the quality of that makeup compared to the Karloff makeup. It's no contest. Once again, the kid with the scissors has struck. Well, at least he didn't cut too much off of John Carradine's head. Just cut this off. That's all. Can you imagine? All right. Oh. Here's the big ancient Egyptian set piece, and something's cut out of there too. Because it's Tana leaf time again, and the kid cut out a picture of the mummy on this side. The Tana leaves, of course, were brewed by the high priests of Karnak, and that was the fluid that kept the mummy alive in his sarcophagus. At last, you can have a mummy mask. So in the late 1950s, there were a lot of horror hosts that would come on, usually late night TV, and host horror movies that were being shown on local television stations. And the horror hosts would introduce the movies and come on during commercial breaks. They would do bumpers where they did little jokes or little skits. Probably the example of this that modern audiences would remember the most is Elvira, who revived it in the 1980s. But Zachary was the king of all the horror hosts. He was in New York and Pennsylvania. And kids just loved Zachary, as evidenced by his mountain of fan mail. I'm not sure you should use an open flame so near all that paper, Zachary. By Jekyll, built for two. Every time you think Forrest J. Ackerman has used the worst pun he can, he pulls another one out. Oh my gosh. Horribly Yours. This was 1959. Christopher Lee was a rising star in horror films. He had just played Dracula the previous year in Hammer Studios' Horror of Dracula, and then he had played the Frankenstein monster in Curse of Frankenstein. Oh, that's a good Dracula picture. I like that. Huh. I started to look ahead here, and I'm like, this picture doesn't match this caption. And then I realized, yep. Scissors strike again. Ooh, can you enter the Monster Maker contest? Make it yourself monster kit. The official Masquerade Party television makeup kit used on the popular ABC television show. Oh, and here's all the stuff you get in your monster making kit. A bald cap, 4 noses, devil horns, scar piece, mustache, a bottle of latex adhesive, black and brown makeup pencils, complete book of instructions, that's good, 2 chins, 4 cheek pieces, pointed ears, oh my gosh, grease paint, eye patch, 3 different artificial hair pieces. Wow. Oh my gosh. What more could you want? This kid must have been proud of himself. That's pretty good. Oh, if you join their Monster Club, you could get your name and city where you live printed in the magazine. Maybe even your picture. How much does it cost to join the Monster Club? 75 cents. The cover price, by the way, for this magazine, I probably should have mentioned that, is 35 cents. But that's 35 cents of 1959 money. You know, if you didn't want to wait for a good horror movie to come on the local syndicated horror host TV show, about the only other thing you could do in the 1950s was to have a movie projector at home, like the kind your parents showed vacation movies on, and you could send away in the mail and buy reels of film from Hollywood horror movies. You wouldn't get the whole movie, though. You would get about 10 to 12 minutes of the movie, like a highlight reel. And Famous Monsters of Filmland sold those for years and years. You can get Dracula's rubber bat. Why would Dracula need a rubber bat? I didn't think that through. Yikes. How to have a spook show in your own home. Oh, and masks. But here they were just showing you a drawing of the mask, not a photograph of it. So I would be careful. You can get the Super Frankenstein mask, though. Monster mail order. Mad Dr. Hypodermic needle. Monster stationery. U.S. Army type time bomb. Wow. "3D comics." I do not know what that is unless they were pop-up books, and I'm sure they were not pop-up books, so I don't know. I guess they sold you 3D glasses that went with your book. Oh, here's the bodybuilding ads. Staples of comics and kids magazines. Do 10 minutes a day of exercise at home and you can gain 60 pounds of muscle? Wow. Uh-oh. Well, we're running out of road here. This is not actually the end of the magazine, but it's the end of our copy of the magazine because we don't have the back cover. So they're wrapping it up with a Monsterama quiz. Oh, and they give you the answers. In later magazines, what they would do is ask you the questions in this issue, and then in next issue, print the answers with a new batch of questions. That way you had to keep coming back for more. This has been Famous Monsters of Filmland, issue number 4, a magazine I've always wanted to own. Listen, if you enjoy vintage horror and classic monsters, check out my book series, the Mourner's Woods books. I'm a self-published author on Amazon.com. I've written a series of novels that all take place in a haunted forest, Mourner's Woods. Each novel brings an entirely new cast of characters into Mourner's Woods, and each group of people who dare to trespass into this wilderness faces a different threat. Ghosts, monsters, giant spiders, banshees. But invariably, the biggest threat each character faces is the friends who hike there with them. Because betrayal is a big problem in Mourner's Woods. And usually the characters have to fight to escape not only the ghosts and goblins, but also from each other. My name again is Paul Edwards. My books are the Mourner's Woods books, available on Amazon in paperback, audiobook, and ebook for only 99 cents. Thanks for spending some time going through Famous Monsters of Filmland issue number 4 with me. I'll see you in Mourner's Woods.